Welcome to the Jobology podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and today my guest is a friend of mine who I met through a previous guest of our podcast. Our guest today is Josue. He's a respiratory therapist. He's going to talk to us all about the clients he has to work with, from the infants all the way to the elderly, and he's going to give us some tips to improve our own lung function. So without further ado, Josue. Thank you for being with me, Josue.
Happy to be here. Yep.
Appreciate it. Couple things. The thing that we always like to start with here on Jobology is we like to get a baseline going. So I like to figure out how you would describe your job to me versus like what your official job title is. So if we were at a party and I ran into you, I'm like, oh man, Josue, how are you doing? What are you doing nowadays? How would you answer that versus what your official title is?
Yeah, like a lot of people don't really know respiratory therapy. It's like a kind of this weird niche. But like I like to just keep it plain and simple, like a respiratory nurse, because a lot of people are familiar with nursing and stuff, but I just help people breathe. It's very, very simple. But it gets more complicated than that, obviously. But just to a regular person, I just help people breathe, man.
Gotcha. And this is for like ages from newborn to 90, or like is there a range of people you typically deal with?
Like there's the adult side and there's like the NICU side, so the baby side. Yeah, so it's like all over. I mean, you deal with like the baby side, which is like literally right when they get out. So it's like brand new life, and then we're at the end too.
So respiratory therapist for a wide range of people. Um, why become a respiratory therapist?
I know that is a good question.
Yeah, like what kind of drew you to that field to start?
Well, yeah, well, I suffered like a brain tumor when I was like 18 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty well. It's kind of cool. I survived, and
It's cool to tell the story now. It's not so cool when it's happening, I'm assuming.
yeah. I mean, it's so funny in retrospect. Like, I was like, dude, I don't get to walk high school, but like, who really
Oh,
cares about high school these days?
yeah,
You know?
nowadays,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
But at that moment, that's the biggest thing in your life. It's like it's the world's ending.
Seriously, I'm like, what the heck? Like now I'm stuck in the hospital, but whatever, it's on hindsight. But
Right.
I actually was on TV because of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I graduated at the hospital.
Oh,
Cool.
that's so
Yeah,
weird. Yeah.
it's pretty rad.
Interesting. Okay.
But anyways, that whole thing got me into like healthcare. I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, no one knows what they're gonna do when they're 18 years old or whatever. I was trying to join the Navy, and I didn't apply to any schools, so community college, and then I was gonna go do the nursing route, but my friend recommended respiratory, and I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, no one knows what it is, and I sort of just stumbled upon it, and honestly, yeah.
So it wasn't something like, necessarily that when you were a child you had a passion for and you're like, I'm going to be a nurse, I'm going to, but then once you get into a situation where either a catastrophic event happens or some kind of, massive health thing happens, then you're like, wait, maybe this is my field. Like I'm spending all my time here right now anyways. I kind of, for lack of better terms, enjoy it. I mean, I'm sure you're not enjoying it necessarily, but hey, the environment's okay. I wouldn't mind, potentially working here. And then somebody kind of says, hey, I think you'd be good for this. Go for it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I just like to help people, and obviously this kind of career path, we really help like everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like from old to new, like babies to adults, it's all over, wide range.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, especially with my audience, I'm assuming we have people from all ages. So this could be helpful to everyone. Is there so are you currently working for like a individual like doctor's office or like a full-time hospital? Like what is the setting you're working in?
Yeah, that's the confusing part. The thing is, like with me, I'm actually working at an acute hospital,
Okay.
but we mainly work at acute hospitals. So any sort of like metropolitan area, that's like where predominantly like respiratory therapists are. But they are like smaller subfields or whatever, where you can do like PFTs, called pulmonary function testing. So you're like testing people's lungs, which is more like an outpatient type, or you can do like home health, which is like another avenue.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is there like a way to be almost like an independent contractor kind of, where like you just kind of bounce from place to place, or are you like contracted to a specific company?
So technically there's like a travelers, which is kind of trending right now, like because of COVID and stuff, but they're technically independent contractors in a way. They get like the hospital is in dire need of somebody, so they'll pay a little bit more of a premium for those people to come in.
Gotcha. Okay.
We'll have like more experience, like pretty much ready to go, like any given moment. But
Sure.
that's been trending a lot in in healthcare, just traveling and
It's like getting back to like the olden times where the doctor would come to your house and be like, okay, I'm here, like what's wrong, blah blah blah. But that and like telehealth, I feel like are like the new kind of fancy things.
yeah, we're just trying to get a hold of people, help everybody out, especially because of COVID precautions.
Yeah.
I think in any industry, like COVID just kind of changed the game.
Well, yeah, and I mean, especially in something like respiratory, I feel like that's kind of the consequence of getting COVID for a lot of people is the long-term respiratory symptoms. So, that might spike your workload of like, oh man, now I had used to have to deal with a person a day. Now I'm dealing with, 50 people a day, or I don't know, but I would assume.
Yeah, that's how it is. But yeah, because there's this thing called like long COVID. So it's like, even though it's over, people are going through like still like small symptoms. And even just recently, there was like a COVID patient that we had up in our hospital. So, it's kind of like pretty much over, but it's like kind of the
Still
small
going.
trickles. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. How do you become a respiratory therapist? Like, do you have to go to school? Is it like certifications or like training classes? Like, how the actual like physical, how do you become it?
Yeah. So it's like typically it's like tech, it's like a tech school,
Okay.
like a 2-year program, just like nursing. Nursing has like 2-year programs, whatever. They're at community college, or like I think the biggest one out here is like Pima. But that's what I did. 2 years in, you go in. Most of the learning is like hands-on. After that, like you kind of learn beside the doctor or whatever, like kind of they don't just throw you to the wolf.
Like an intern kind of?
Kind of, but
Okay.
it's just like it's just like it's like
Training?
yeah, like you do clinical rotations technically within the school. Yeah, and they kind of like expose you like very, very little,
Hmm.
like gradually expose you gradually. But yeah, it's kind of a weird career path. It's like tech, it's all hands on.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, that's something I find really fascinating about a lot of people's jobs is the actual how you get the job. So like whether it's, hey, I just went online and filled an application, they called me and said, hey, do you want the job? Or if it's like, no, I had to go through like courses and training and this and that. So it is interesting the fact of like, no, like you don't have to necessarily go for your university route. You can go like technical school route or, community college route or whatever it is, that there is other options out there, not just the traditional university route.
Yeah, that's what this is. Like a lot of people are like grateful that like respiratory is like in a tech school, because yeah, it's a great field. I really like it. But yeah, most of it's hands-on, clinic, a little bit of clinical work during school, book work, of course, and you learn a lot about the body. And then most of the job is basically you're learning on the job sort of type.
And then so you graduate from the technical school, and then do you just start like applying to hospitals and medical, I don't know, not fields, but medical buildings or practices or stuff like that?
Basically, there's a board that governs us, so we have to get licensed. There's a national board, and then there's also like a California state board.
I guess that's probably good that they're not just like, hey, go out there and you
Yeah.
guys got it figured out. Yeah.
You're like, hey, good luck,
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
not this time. But yeah,
Okay.
people that governs us, that kind of like fight for us and make sure that like you get equal pay, and like we make sure that like there's legislation that happens like on the upper level and stuff. But they accredit us. They're like, hey, you're good to go. There's 2 different tests you kind of go through. One's more like multiple choice, like what do you know about like respiratory? What do you know about like the lung dynamic and all this, like the body, yada yada. And then
When you breathe, they inflate. When you exhale, they deflate. That's about all I know.
yeah, it's like with us, we have to know like the small nuances of like everything, but then there's that part, and then there's the clinical side where we actually apply whatever principles into actual like care, like what do you do in more scenario based, like what do you do in this situation, what do you do in that. So those 2 tests get you your license.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you're licensed, you apply, they hire you on, and you start working.
Yeah, like I mean, I was already working at a hospital.
Oh, nice.
I think right now, post COVID, it's a lot easier to get jobs, but before it was a little bit more like selective. Like I was told by other like RTs that it's like back in 08, 09, it was like really, really difficult to like get a job anywhere. You pretty much had to know somebody, but I think now like they need people.
Yeah, more people are changing industry, more people are leaving, coming. Okay,
Yeah,
makes sense.
exactly.
Now that we have our job, we're working in the hospital, we've finished our training, so now you're off on your own. They're like, hey, no more hand holding, you got this. What does an average day kind of look like for you? Before, I don't think this was covered on, since we're recording, but a little behind the scenes prior to us hopping on this call, I was talking with Tosway, and he was letting me know that he just switched to night or to day shift. So I'm assuming that average day between night and day shift could be a little different. But is there kind of just like, now that you're working days, what does your average kind of day look like?
Well, I'm actually still on nights, but I
Oh, sorry.
switched over. No, yeah, I switched over to like day schedule kind of. That's what we call it. Like, but just an average night, but day would be like we get our workloads, which it could be anything. We like every hospital is kind of like point based for the most part. In terms of like productivity, but a normal day would be like we get 4 ventilators, each one's a little bit different. You go get a report, so we get kind of like the backstory history of what's going on with that patient, and then we kind of man the ventilator. We kind of are there just in case something happens or any sort of like small nuance like change, then we have to intervene. Or
Is this something you would know yesterday per se? Like, hey, I'm gonna have these four, like I already know going in, or is it like, hey, I walk into the hospital at X time and they hand me four people and I go, oh, this is what I'm doing today.
yeah, when you're first training, you kind of know what you're doing, but after that, you're kind of like you fit where needed type. So you kind of don't know. Like one day I'll be working in the medical ICU, and then the next I'll be in surgical ICU, and then the next day I'll be in like the neonatal ICU. So it's like
Oh, so it's very different.
every day is a different day. So which is like great. I mean, I like it. It changes your sort of like your mind.
Makes your brain work in different ways.
Yeah, and every day is different. Like
Yeah, and you don't get bored. Like it's not like I can go in and just kind of go through the motions. It's like, no, I have to actually like know what I'm doing because it's
yeah,
something could be different.
exactly.
Is there a typical start time and like how long is a typical shift?
Yeah, like typically, at least in San Diego, from what I know, is like you start at 6 o'clock. Yeah, so we do the best thing is like we do the same as nursing. It's like 12-hour shifts.
Okay.
So 3 12s would be a standard work week.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, but I think I heard some hospitals up in LA do like 8-hour mid shifts and stuff, or different hospitals do different things, and we get utilized differently. But for the most part, standard would be like a 12-hour shift for at least acute hospital, and that's a long time,
Yeah,
right?
that seems like a very, I mean, I do like this is like a typical, hour or so conversation. I'm like that, and then I'm spent, I'm done. I'm like, I don't want to do nothing for the rest of the day, let alone like 12 hours.
Yeah,
Oh gosh, no way.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there is some downtime during that time because like we're not always working. We kind of have to like rest, obviously.
Sure, sure, sure. Makes sense. You get breaks, you get your
Yeah,
lunches, you get all that jazz.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Gotcha. Is there a pay range for what a respiratory therapist can make? I mean, something that kind of stipulations we always like to put on this is, Josue is on the West Coast, so it's not to say that this is going to be for everywhere in the country. And, if you're working, I'm sure at a big major hospital, it might be different than if you're working at a little, smaller private hospital, whatever it might be. There's always going to be stipulations. But is there, kind of a basic range you could give us so people have an idea?
Yeah, it depends on if you want to work a lot, but basically you can probably make anywhere from like 60 to I don't know, 80K ish. It's a good range.
Gotcha.
Obviously, if you want to make more money, there'll be shifts there. You just have to work.
Okay, so that's what I was gonna ask. There is like overtime opportunities and like stuff like that where you can always pick up shifts, like as long as you're, I'm sure, following like some kind of hours guidelines within however many work weeks or whatever. I don't know, but there's always some kind of rules on that.
Yeah, it's like I said, like 36 hours would be your standard week. So anything after that would be like time and a half or whatever. That's just in general, like California law, whatever. But yeah, I mean, sometimes they're so short that they'll need double time. There's opportunity for that. So
Jeez. So you could technically, if you were like, hey, I'm single, I have no family, I got nothing going on, I want to just work, like you could technically top out pretty high if you just really worked as much as you could.
that's what I did during COVID. Was like there was there was nothing to do. Like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, I'm either gonna sit at home or make money. Like you
Exactly. Twiddle my thumbs, watch paint dry. Like I'm not doing that. And so I just worked and
can only watch Netflix so many times.
yeah, I mean
Literally all of Netflix.
I mean Tiger King is pretty dope,
Hey,
but like,
Tiger King was that was perfect. I mean, obviously this is years past, but that was a perfect time for that thing to land, man. Gee.
seriously, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Netflix.
that was great. That was great. Okay, so yeah, overtime, double time. I mean, like holidays if you have to work on a holiday, things like that. I'm sure, whatever.
Yeah, there's minimum requirements and stuff, but yeah, I mean, I probably capped out on that during COVID. It was good. It was good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, making extra money is never a bad thing. I like that. Are you hourly or salary?
Yeah, we are hourly. There's pros and yeah, 36 weeks per hour, and then and there's pros and cons, but once you get up to upper management, at that point they put you on a salary.
Do you get like benefits like medical? I mean, I don't. How would that work? How does it work medical if you work for a med? Like, do you have to go to there, or can you go somewhere else? I never thought about that.
It's healthcare. We're just we're a confusing bunch.
I know. Yeah, insurance is tough.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it'd be better for the hospital for you to come to their hospital, right? Like in terms of the cost, but you can, if you want, you can also, go to somewhere else, PPO, right? There's all that.
That seems messed up. That seems messed up. That'd be like if I was like playing for the Padres and then got hurt and was like, I'm gonna go to the Dodgers doctor though. It's like, wait, why don't you want to come to art? Like, what's wrong with us?
Yeah, it's pretty, yeah, exactly, right. But it is incentivized for us to go with the network,
Sure.
What if you're at like Colorado or something?
Exactly.
But healthcare is cheaper for us.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And then like dental and 401k and all that jazz. One of the other things that I kind of like to talk about or we like to find out about here is um so like those are the perks and benefits is what I call those. I like to kind of discuss the hidden perks or what I call the hidden perks, which means like it might not be something that's written out in the contract or in your employment description, but it's like something that you find like, oh, this is a nice perk of the job that like nobody talks about or like that nobody would know. And I mean, maybe it is the 3-day work week where it's like, hey, if I just want to work 3 days, I'm done, I'm out. Like that's a hidden perk that most jobs don't have. Or is there something like that that you could think of where you're like, oh, this was something that nobody knows, that man, it's awesome?
Besides the 3-day work week,
Yeah,
I mean, that's a dope perk.
I kind of took the one. I was like, I'm
That
gonna
is
take the one that's right there, easy, and
that's
make it
half
tough
a
for him to come
year. You only
back.
have to work
Yeah.
half a year.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I don't put it. I didn't think of it in context like that. I was just thinking of it in context of, gotcha. Yeah. So, oh wow. And then vacation. Do you get to like you get an X amount of vacation time so you can kind of like figure that out and like yeah, because that seems like it might be easier to maneuver if you're like, oh, I work the first 3 days of the week, then I get X off, and then I'll work the last 3 days of the next week, and I can have like a huge.
That's exactly what people do. They'll do that. They'll work like 6 days straight or something, and then they'll get like days off or something like that. And then I don't know. You can travel. If you can travel.
Yeah, and then if you put in for like a vacation week after, you know what I mean? You're like, okay, I'm just gonna. Then you get almost a free week of vacation plus the week, so you can actually do things as opposed to some jobs where they'll crush you for doing that.
You're like, yeah, they get reprimanded. I'm like, what the heck?
That's what I don't get. Yeah, I never understood that. It's like you guys give me the vacation and then get mad when I use it. I don't quite get that one, but okay. And then is there like a job hierarchy that you're working with right now? Like, do you have somebody you report to? Do you have a team under you? Like, how does that kind of work?
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's structured pretty normal. Like you got us, and you have your leads, and then supervisor, and then your GM or your manager, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, not the different hospital. They'll get rid of the supervisors, but just it's pretty simple hierarchy. Um, yeah, it's nothing complicated. Like I don't, it's just hourly stuff.
Yeah. Is there a way for like you to advance if you wanted to, of like get the next promotion, the next, is there like a top mark that you were like, hey, I would love to get to this point?
I mean, yeah, there's like leadership at that point. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
you get paid a little bit more because I worked with once you're in the NICU, like
Okay.
you get paid a little bit more. So there's like a that bump, but you have to deal with like screaming babies and
Mm. Screaming parents and
yeah, dealing with parents and making sure they're happy. And sometimes it's almost like keeping the parents happy, but
I mean, there's a question that I have coming up later on that has to do with parents and having a baby and kind of respiratory stuff, and we'll see if you can answer it.
it's of you, right?
What's up?
It's of you, right? Aren't you? Aren't you?
We're not there yet. We're not there
Oh,
yet.
okay,
Eventually, maybe. I have a question about me as a future parent too. So hey, you
okay.
never know what we're gonna get in this place. But um, do you have? We're gonna kind of move into the next phase of the podcast here. But do you have like any advice for if there was a new employee taking your spot, or not necessarily yours, but a equivalent spot to yours? Do you have any advice that you would give them like day one of like, hey, here's something you can take with you throughout your time doing this job?
Well, I mean, it feels so like cliche, but I mean, honestly, never stop learning because
Yeah.
sometimes like I think the mindset is like, okay, I made it, like and like this is it.
I know what I'm doing now.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's like I know what I'm doing. Yeah, because like once you get into that mindset, just like you kind of become I wouldn't say problematic, but like
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like you're susceptible to falling into traps a lot easier because you're like,
yeah,
hey, I'm just going. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I got this. Da, da, da. And then that's when you're like that misstep happens or that
yeah,
curveball comes, and you're like, wait, that wasn't part of my normal thing.
exactly. So just keep an open mind, because like there's always things changing. I always make the analogy like medicine is like an art
No, I like that. I like that.
because you're practicing medicine. You're not really like, even though it's like it sounds so structured, you come here, you get fixed, but like everyone's different. Like every single human body is different. Like one thing might not work for this patient, so you try something else.
Yeah.
Just keeping that open mindset, it really, really, really helps people out.
So what I've gathered is people, and this is not you. This is not just you. This is every guest that I've had. Pretty much is always learn, like keep learning. That's a huge thing that most people say for advice. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Like those are like the keep learning and don't be afraid to ask for help are the two like pillars of advice that people give.
It's so true.
Of like, don't think you know it all. You don't. Like it's okay to ask. People want to help. And keep learning, keep getting better, keep growing, that kind of thing. Like that's it 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 is the exact like it's wild how everyone thinks that.
Okay, you've been doing this for a while, so it's like,
Yeah, it's pretty neat to like, because I was always under the before I started, I was always under the assumption that everything's so different. Like everybody's different, but when it comes down to it and you break it down a lot, it's pretty much most people are the same. Like, hey, be nice to people you work with. It makes it easier for everybody. Like keep learning and what all the different little things. So um is there anything that you, if you could, would change about your personal path? So either like, the place you started work. I mean, not necessarily that, but like, is there something along your path that you're like, oh man, if I would have just done that, that would have made it so much easier?
um, honestly, no. I just got it. Yeah, I got in at the right time. Everything seemed to kind of work out. Yeah, because like me working at the ER and then moving over, and no, I don't think there really is. Like, I think I'm on the right path as of now.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly fine answer for a lot of people. I mean, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I would have done this or I would have done that, but some people, and I think that having that realization or the ability to like recognize like, no, I think what I did was right and I'm going to keep on the path. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did have to work a lot to get here. It's
Oh
not like,
yeah.
like I was working with Lisa at Hello Betty, like crunch
Yep.
time, serving people.
Yep.
And
Oh
at
yeah.
right after my shift, I'd be like on the computer and like doing a
Learning, learning,
handout.
learning.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, to have that motivation is something else too. I mean, not a lot of people have the motivation to work a job and try and better themselves at the same time. I mean, I know I didn't. I had to quit my job to start bettering myself. So
There you go. Hey, everyone's different, bro.
Exactly. Uh, so now I have like a few questions that are specific to respiratory therapists. If you're like, hey, this doesn't work, then we'll just move on, or we can kind of revamp the question maybe. But the first thing I have here is I don't have any kids. I mean, we kind of talked about, maybe trying to have kids in the future, but I don't have any kids currently. Um, and I am a bit worried that I'm going to be that parent that's like, they cough and I'm like, we got to take them to the hospital. Like they have a sniffle, doctors. Like, no, I'm a little nervous that I'm going to be that guy. Is there something that you could like tell me, or I don't know, like a tip or something where you're like, or also something of like, hey, no, if this happens, definitely take them to the, is there something you could do to like ease me or give me a little bit of help in that?
Yeah, I feel you, man. It's just me working all over. Like our bodies are very, very resilient,
Okay.
Obviously to some certain extent, like we need to just say like I need help. But the biggest thing that I realized was like, dude, just drink water. Water is like the best.
So that's something that I've actually been trying to work on more, is like I have like a water bottle that I fill up now, try and like drink a few a day. So, okay. That's good to know that I'm doing something right.
Yeah. And in terms of your kid though, like we're resilient.
Okay. Yeah, it does take a lot. It's tough to take you down. Like it's gotta be something pretty strong to actually take you out.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, that's it, really. Just drink your water and don't be too scared because like we'll see kids come in and then obviously the parents are like really concerned and overbearing, but like they're fine. They're not, especially in the like they're fine. We can't really do much. Like a lot of times, like it takes just time to get better. But if your kid's like 103, 4, 5 fever, then that's like more like common sense.
Gotcha. But I mean, still, like to know, because like I wouldn't have even thought to like take temperature. I would have gone sniffles, doctor. So if you go, hey, take a temperature. If it's a fever, take them in. If it's not a fever, relax. Like they'll be okay. Let them kind of work through it a little bit, and like, but keep an eye on the temperature. I think that's
Yeah,
awesome.
the temp is a big thing. Yeah.
Common sense isn't as common nowadays, so it's nice to refresh people too. Like, hey, even though everyone thinks this might be common sense, if somebody out there is like, oh yeah, thermometer, duh, then hey,
Yeah.
perfect. It's all that
So
matters to me.
fever, um, if they like look pale, um,
Okay, so coloring, good to know.
color, discoloration. And then yeah, just get biggest defense is fluids. Even that's what the first thing we do whenever there's like a really sick patient is like we give them fluids. So water is a very beautiful, beautiful thing.
Okay, I will continue to do that.
Yeah, I like to call it drug because like that's the way my mind thinks. You got to consume a certain thing, even food is medicine. So yeah, just drink your water.
Gotcha. Will do. Are the majority of respiratory issues genetic, or is there something like the general population is doing or could do to make that better?
Um, yeah, so there are some autoimmune diseases that like cystic fibrosis that like a lot of the pediatrics RTs will have to deal with and stuff and sort of maintaining that. But a lot of it's like smoking, obviously that's one of the big preventions. There's a thing called COPD, like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. That like a lot of people who smoked like back then kind of develop. And we deal with that a lot,
Mhm.
and then obviously your asthma and that's for the most part genetic from what I, but that's kind of like yay and nay.
Yeah, I mean, I figure I'm not, I'm not gonna say I'm a big proponent of something I don't know that much about, but I am more on the like, I think genetics plays a like 90% role in what's gonna happen to us. Yeah, environment's important and all that, but like it's pretty much what your body's made up of that's gonna decide your fate. Um, so I was kind of curious of like, hey, if you're like, oh no, there's this great supplement you could take that's gonna boost your lung health, or hey, there's this. But if it's like, no, just don't smoke if you're smoking if you're worried about that, or try to stay away from people smoking if you're worried about that kind of thing. But I gotcha. Of like, now I'm more genetic based than not. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's more prevention, like in terms of like lungs. Most of it's been prevention, but
Okay. Is We kind of discussed like newborns and parents of newborns and all that jazz. So, hypothetically, if you're working in the NICU or with newborns, and somebody, obviously I haven't given birth. We already talked about this. I haven't given birth, nor do I have a child. But I could imagine that after giving birth, memory and retaining information might be not the most easy thing in the world to do. Like, there's other stuff going on in your body and your mind and whatever. Is there something that, if you were to tell parents, hey, that you're like, I would love if you remembered this one thing. If you don't remember anything else of what I tell you, remember this one thing.
in terms of the funny thing is I'm like seeing these kids be born, like I'm getting some training before, I'm even having a kid, right? But I would say just stay calm, you know, stay calm um and and work on your breathing exercises. Yeah.
Yeah, staying calm or like relax. I think a lot of times people take that in the negative, where they're like, don't tell me to relax, don't tell me to stay calm, you know what I mean? But it's like, as a reminder in that situation where like you feel like things are crazy in a whirlwind, like, calm, like, weather this. You can only deal with one thing at a time, so weather the storm, deal with
Exactly.
the one thing at a time.
Yeah, yeah, because like it's chaotic, it's chaotic in there, and so just being like a pillar of calmness, it kind of helps the situation.
I like that. I like that. I can get winded going upstairs. I mean, I do not have the greatest lung health, the greatest stamina in the world. Is there something, if it is drinking water, then hey, we already discussed it. But is there something else, or like I don't know, an exercise I could be doing to like increase lung function?
Um, let's see. Well, we do train these like COPDers, which have um like we call them barrel chest lungs and stuff because they can't really exhale out, but it's called pursed lip breathing. Basically what you're doing is it's very complicated, but long story short, you just breathe in and then you apply a little bit of back pressure so that like you pretty much exhale out fully. What if I'm like stressed out? Like I'll do it occasionally, and then just slow. It's like almost like blowing out through a straw, like with your lips.
Okay, like you're trying to fill up a balloon.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah, I'll do it if I'm stressed or something. Like but the whole idea is that you're exhaling out fully, and you're kind of conscious about your breathing.
I'll have to give it a try. I'll have to try it out. Um, that's pretty much everything I have on my end. I mean, we kind of went through this fairly quickly, but I think that's because you're, very concise and very, prepared. Is there anything that I missed that you think is important that we should talk about or bring up, or anything that you're like, man, I really wish Brandon would have asked me X?
Shoot, right. Honestly, I can't think of something right now, but I know for a fact that I'm gonna be like, why didn't we talk about that? Like,
Yeah, that's how that happens. That's like every after we hit end and whatever, and like we have our little chat after. It's bound to happen that somebody goes, oh, why didn't we mention that, or oh, we should have talked about blah blah blah. So totally cool, no worries. We can always do follow-up episodes. That's something I'm going to look for in the future. So maybe we follow up and see where you're at and whatever then. But for now, the last bit of the podcast I like to do is a guest promotion. So if there's anything that you're working on, you personally on the side, or you're a friend's working on the side, or you want to bring attention to a charity, a cause, a whatever, here's your time.
yeah, I'm working on a couple projects, but I think it's honestly in the preliminary stages right now, so I can't expose it yet because like these are good ideas, but
Okay. Could you give us like, maybe like, is it a game? Is it a clothing item? Is it a food?
yeah, it would be clothing.
Cool.
I'm sort of like putting my mind towards like other stuff because we only work 3 days a week. There's four
There's a lot of time.
other
Yeah.
days, and there's a lot of different time. There's so much time you can do other stuff. Um, yeah, I'm working on a little bit of a clothing line, so we'll see what happens.
We'll look out for that in the future. Whenever you're ready to, you know, go live with it or let people know, then we will promote it on our stuff and people can go check it out. But I think that's awesome. If you get there and you want to send me something, I'll wear it on a podcast. So, but yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this for me. Really appreciate it. Thank you for all the great information.
Yeah, hopefully it helps whoever is in the field. It really is a pretty dope field, but you just got to go through the punches and do your 2 years and a little bit, especially having a strong mind, because it's a lot of you see a lot of death, so it's like understanding that process too. So,
We gotcha. Well, thank you very much, man. Have a great rest of your day.
all right, peace.
Well, that's it for another episode of the Jobology podcast. Thanks, Josue, for being my guest today. Before I let you guys go, a couple quick reminders. Please make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and comment what job you guys would like to see next on all of our social media platforms at Jobology Podcast. Like we say to end every episode, make good choices.